Midnight, 10 bodies, one room. A goat blinks in the gloom. A child kicks. A floorboard squeals. Somewhere under a scratchy wool blanket, a hand searches for another hand and freezes, because in this house, even a sigh is public. No walls, no doors, no mercy from the straw that whispers like a gossip. Be honest. Could you make love when your grandmother's snoring 3 steps away? If that image punches you in the chest, good, keep it there. Because this is how most people in medieval Europe lived, not in homes, but in a single heated space called the hall, or in the north, a longhouse, where smoke climbed through a hole that barely worked, and warmth came from bodies stacked close. By day, the table took the blows of knives and elbows. By night, it became a bed. Straw pallets were dragged from the wall, a cloak doubled as a blanket, tools slept next to people, animals shared the air, privacy wasn't rare, it wasn't even a word that mattered. Now imagine a wedding. You've done the vows, eaten the bread, finished the ale. The match is sealed, at least publicly. In some places, friends walk you to the bed in a bedding ritual to prove you're not just play acting at marriage. The curtain, if there is one, twitches. Heads turn away because custom demands it, not because architecture allows it. You are married, but you are not alone. Love must learn to move without being seen, inside a room that watches everything. So, couples built invisible rooms. When you can't afford timber and you hate the chill of stone, you use fabric. Thick wool hangings, a patched blanket strung on a cord, a reed screen dragged into place at night. None of it stops sound. All of it creates a claim. For this slice of time, this corner is ours. Probate lists start to name bed curtains right alongside pots and tools. In townhouses, the only fully curtained bed belonged to the master and his wife, a 4-poster with heavy drapes that turned a bed into a tiny house. Apprentices got the loft, servants hugged the door, children settled around the embers like puppies around a mother. In a world with no rooms, a curtain was an act of will. Tell me in the comments, would a curtain be enough for you? Or do you need a key in an iron lock to breathe? Intimacy in one room was a schedule, not a surprise. Parents waited for the lull that drops after a long day, for the baby's hiccups to fade, for the apprentice to trudge to the well. Market day was a gift. The house emptied for an hour while someone haggled over grain. Signals did the talking that words couldn't risk. A shoe turned toe out beside the door meant later. A lantern left on the chest meant not tonight. A water bucket waiting by the threshold meant now or never. Lovers became logisticians. They learned the shape of silence and used it like a tool. When silence failed, couples left the house. Barns were cold, bakehouses dusty, granaries gritty, but they were empty. Records don't blush, they just write. A pair startled near a mill wall. A husband and wife discovered on a sack of wheat, while guests roared in the hall. A young couple ducking behind hedges because the cottage had no corner untaken. None of this is a romance poster. It's survival of affection, of marriage, of any hope that 2 people could be 2 people for 15 minutes. Class changed the options, but not the need. Cotters and villains slept by the fire forever. Prosperous yeomen, merchants, and lesser lords began to carve out chambers. An upper room, the solar meant, you could climb away from smoke and chatter, draw a bolt, open a chest of linen, and finally, exhale. Privacy became a way to show status. Look, I can shut the world out. Yet even in manors and small castles, walls leaked sound, and servants learned more than they should. Gossip is the tax you pay for help. Privacy improved. Eavesdropping evolved with it. Towns offered opportunity and a new kind of pressure. Timbered houses touched. Neighbors were an arm's length away through plaster and beam. Your lullaby could be someone else's argument. Apprentices slept like spoons in a narrow loft. Boots for pillows, breath for heat. The master's bed, with its curtains and carven posts, was the one island of mine in an ocean of ours. But islands get waves. They feel the tide of the house. The church set rules for beds the way guilds set rules for trades. Inside marriage, intimacy wasn't just allowed, it was expected, owed even. The marriage debt meant a spouse could call in the duty. But pleasure got side-eyed. Manuals for confessors taught priests to ask the kind of questions that make you swallow hard. Did you enjoy yourself too much? Did you use wanton words while others slept nearby? Did you break the calendar feast days, fast days, Sundays, seasons of penance? The ideal was self-control pointed at procreation. The reality was a room where that control had to exist under an audience. Thin timbers, thick judgment. You might be wondering, what about modesty? People weren't blind or shameless, they were practical. In a house where you see everything, you learn to pretend you don't. Children understood that the curtain meant, look at the fire. Servants caught the cough in their throat and turned over loudly at convenient moments. Communities built unwritten rules of looking away. Think of it as a neighborhood agreement. Everyone knows, nobody says. Does that sound familiar to your own life? Drop a yep if it does. Let's slow down and step into 3 scenes that come straight from the kinds of records that survive. First, a kitchen at night. The bread oven throws heat like a small sun. The rest of the room is ice. There is no spare corner, no spare bed. A wife and husband slip behind the oven because it's the only warm barrier between them and everyone else. Flour, dust, sticks to sweat. It's not sweet, it's human. Second, a townhouse. The master and mistress pull their bed curtains. The servant on the pallet hears the rustle and the rhythm through cloth. She is part of the house, and not part of it inside the economy, outside the intimacy. She will say nothing, because work needs peace. Third, a granary during a feast. The hall is roaring. The house is stuffed. A married pair slide a door, tumble onto sacks of grain, and breathe like they've stolen a crown. They'll go back to the singing as if nothing happened. The next morning, they'll rake the yard and pretend the wheat is smooth. What about the senses, the parts of life that don't fit in tidy lists? Sound ruled. Houses were loud and betraying. Straw whispered. Bed slats complained. Even clothing made noise coarse, wool rubbing like dry leaves. Couples learned to choreograph around it, time a cough to a creak. Stoke a log at the worst moment so the roar covers a breath. Wait for a gust at the shutters. If you've ever tried to open a bag of chips quietly at midnight, you already understand medieval acoustics. Smell mattered more than we like to admit. Smoke was everywhere. Animals carried the field into the hall. People bathed less than we do, more than the stereotype says, and relied on clean shifts, warmed linen, and herbs crushed in hands, rosemary, sage little defenses against the barnyard. Desire didn't vanish in the smell, it adjusted. Love lowers its expectations. That's one of its superpowers. Light was both ally and enemy. Firelight is cruel. It flickers, throws odd shadows, makes noses long and eyes deep. Embers were kinder. Moonlight through smoke could make a curtain look like a cliff. Dusk hid more than it showed, and couples chose their hour accordingly. If you've ever dimmed a lamp to feel braver, you stand in their footprints. Parents used tricks. A story told in a low voice buys 10 minutes of quiet. A chore shouted toward the door sends the apprentice outside. A sudden interest in the water bucket go fetch opens a window of silence. Children learned early that adults have their own mysteries. The house taught them to read a room long before it taught them to read words. But let's not pretend every story ends soft. Villages had watchmen. Towns had neighbors with long memories. Ecclesiastical courts loved cases where ears became evidence. A laugh at the wrong time, a footprint where none should be, a door that stuck because it had swollen with steam and not weather, small things turned into public trouble. Unmarried lovers risked shame and fines. Married lovers risked gossip that could curdle a marriage faster than milk near the hearth. In a world with few secrets, reputation is a currency. Once spoiled, it's hard to clean. Here's a curveball. Privacy did grow, slowly. Architecture learned to split space. By the later 1500s in wealthier homes, the hall stopped being the bedroom. People started saying chamber without meaning the whole house. A withdrawing room meant exactly what it sounds like, a place to pull away. Multi-story townhouses pushed sleeping quarters upstairs and put latches, real ones, on doors. For the poor, change lagged, but even there you see small steps, a corner bed boarded on two sides, a permanent fabric partition, a movable screen that didn't have to be rolled up with the mats each morning. The house began to cooperate with the heart. Still, the most powerful technology of privacy wasn't a beam or a wall. It was consent and collusion.